Hello, I'm James Johnson,
I'm Keaton Williamson.
and our project was the Christmas tree project out at Lake Allen. As a quick overview, our stakeholder for this project is Grant Rents. As mentioned previously, the location of our project is at Lake Allen out at the school forest. The main purpose for this project was to increase recreational fishing for largemouth bass.
The overall purpose of this project was to create a better recreational fishing experience for largemouth bass. The Christmas trees provided habitat for bait fish to hide in from predators such as the largemouth bass. Bass will congregate around structures for feeding, and this would increase your chances of catching a fish around these structures. In order to accomplish the purpose and goals of this project, we set out a few objectives. These objectives include sinking Christmas trees before spawn, recording GPS coordinates of sunken bundles of trees, then creating a map on ArcGIS Pro. This will be later turned in to Mr. Rents as a GIS file, and he will then turn it into the school forest geodatabase.
Following our objectives, here we have shown our timeline that we anticipated for our steps through the project. In January, our main concern was to meet with our stakeholder and to settle out everything needed for the entire of the project. After that, in February, our main objective then was to collect all our materials and to transport them to the site of our project. In March was when we started twist tying our materials, such as our cinder blocks and bricks, using our hanger wire to the Christmas trees. Once the setup was complete of the trees, we floated them across the lake, got them sunk, took GPS coordinates, and then we finished for March. This was our main objective, to have the tree sunk before spawn. In April, when we got done with sinking all the Christmas trees, we completed our ArcGIS Pro map, in which then we submitted to Grant Rents so that he could put it into his school forest geodatabase. Following our timeline of objectives needed to be met, here we have our budget table below. When we look at it, our materials included our 100-foot roll of hanger wire, our cord clay bricks, and our cord concrete cinder blocks. For our roll of 100-foot hanger wire, we only needed one pack at $6.48 per unit. This cost roughly $7. For our red clay bricks, these were the majority of materials used to sink the Christmas trees out at Lake Allen, coming in at 74 units that we needed. These were $1.28 a piece and costed roughly $100. For the select few of trees that were too big for our bricks, we decided to go with concrete cinder blocks. The quantity we needed for that was 9 at $2.36 per unit. This costed us roughly $25. In all, our project would have costed $132 to complete. Fortunately though, all the materials were donated to us by the school.
Some materials we used that were not in the budget table were diagonal cutting pliers. These pliers were used to cut off a certain amount of hanger wire that would then be used to tie bricks and cinder blocks around the tree. After the trees were prepared, the twist-tied hanger wire, we used my truck to transport the smaller trees to Mr. Rent's house. After we got to his house, we used the kayak that he provided to float the smaller trees around the bank, taking them off and sinking them in randomized bundles. Our final main use of the kayak was to float the larger trees across the lake because they didn't fit in the back of my vehicle.
Moving on to our methods, our original plan was to use cored out concrete cinder blocks and cored out bricks and place them along the Christmas tree. When we used the bricks, we ran the twigs through the opening of the brick, allowing the brick to lay flat against the tree, while we used the opening of our cinder blocks to run the trunk of the tree through it. As you see to the left, when we attempted to test this method of sinking, our trees did not sink. Our trees naturally float on their own, and the weight distribution that we had with our cinder blocks and our bricks were not equal. So when we attempted to sink the trees without any sort of tying mechanism, our bricks or our cinder blocks would slide off because the weight distribution again was not equal. After our failed method from before, we decided to change our sinking method by utilizing hanger wire. This hanger wire would be ran through the core opening of our bricks and or cinder blocks and wrapped around the tree, twist tying it and securing it to the tree. By doing this method, when we go to sink our trees, it wouldn't matter if the balance was off or not, because we could simply twist tie more bricks onto one side that needed it more. To do this, some of the trees were too dense in branches, and we utilized a knife to thin them back a little bit so that our bricks and cinder blocks can lay flat against the tree. And then we twist tied them and set them up and prepared them for sinking.
After finding out the best method to sink trees, we used kayaks to float the trees to a designated location that were too big to fit in the back of the truck. We then tipped over the kayak to sink the bigger trees to avoid injuries, because trying to pick up the tree straight off the kayak would have hurt one of us. We then floated over top of the tree bundle to take GPS coordinates. These coordinates were then used into the GIS map.
Once we finally completed sinking all the trees and doing all of our methods, we move on into making our GIS map. This was made possible by taking the GPS coordinates that we floated over the top of the trees and recorded. Once we came back, we utilized ArcGIS Pro, input those coordinates from the GPS, and created this layout of Lake Allen, showing the recreational fishing structures located within the lake. As you can see, our red dots on the map indicate our bundles of sunken Christmas trees, while the blue outline shows the entirety of Lake Allen outlined on its own. When looking at our overall success, there were a few complications that we ran into. The main complication that we had was the water temperature. It was just absolutely too cold for us to get in the water comfortably and sink the trees without feeling like we're getting hypothermia. But once the end of March hit, temperatures did start to rise, and it actually was nice and refreshing. And then we move on to our other complication of tree buoyancy. Up front, we did a lot of testing of methods to sink the trees, and we did eventually come to the one that works the best. However, we did spend a good portion of our time figuring out which best method to sink these trees. When we look at our larger tree transportation, we couldn't load them into the truck. Therefore, we had to utilize a kayak and a tow strap tied to one of our kayaks and send it in the kayak and basically haul it across the lake by pulling it with the tow strap. And then when we decided to take GPS coordinates, our first GPS given to us simply just did not work. But after coming back, getting a new GPS, and making sure that our GPS can locate the satellites, it worked just fine. Our accomplishments were that we met all of our deadlines listed in our timetable, and when we were setting out all the trees, bait fish were already utilizing these structures. And then as soon as we finished, we got to witness Grant's son go ahead and fish and actually catch some off these structures. Some future ideas we came up for this project included introducing a feeding program to Lake Allen. The supplemental feeding program would help increase the overall health of bass and other fish species found within the lake by giving them a complete diet. Another idea we thought of was to test the water quality. By sampling the water quality, we could look and view what nutrient deficiencies that we have within the water. After knowing those deficiencies, we can then fertilize the pond according to its needs. Some other future ideas that we came up with, and our stakeholder, was to completely restart Lake Allen. This process would include draining Lake Allen entirely. We would have to remove the fish manually or mechanically, and then reintroduce water to the lake while also reintroducing new fish species. By reintroducing more fish, new fish, it would eliminate all the bad that we already have in the pond, restarting it from ground up, and then we can introduce a better fish species for recreational fishing.
Time spent on project and final thoughts. The total time spent was 11 hours. We spent some time testing out sinking methods to see which method would work better. The majority of this time was used to twist tie the bricks and cinder blocks to all the trees. The sinking process didn't take as much time as we thought to complete compared to the twist tying. After finishing this project, some of the final thoughts we had, it was very apparent that it was a success, and hopefully Mr. Grant and his family will enjoy some bass fishing.